Good afternoon, guys. I am being just lazy. So a while back, Grabie, the company Grabie, had reached out to me and they sent me a couple of art supplies in the mail. They're like, we want to send you some stuff. And then I was all like, okay, that sounds cool, but can I also have this? And they were like, yeah. They're like, can you just make us a video about it? And I was like, sure. Well, I guess the stuff got lost in the mail. It's finally reached to me. The video I was supposed to make is, I guess, overdue, but it's outside my hands because I just got the art supplies and then I had to wait till I was no longer at work. So now I'm off of work and now I have art supplies to play with. They sent me a cute little sticker that's now going to sit on my sketchbook. And let me show you what they sent me. So this is what they originally wanted to send me. They're like, we're gonna send you some watercolor pens. They're like, we know you're a watercolor artist. Can you make something with our pens? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. But then I also asked for these acrylic paint pens because who doesn't like acrylic paint pens? I don't use them too often, but they looked like a lot of fun to use and I like getting sent things. So here we are, we're gonna try and play with them. I've already opened them a little bit because one, I was really excited, and then two, I also have to film this for TikTok because actually they asked me for this over TikTok, not over YouTube. So I've already kind of had to film some stuff and it's really hard to film for both TikTok and YouTube. But here we are. I'm going to show you what I'm going to try and color, but don't make fun of me. Oh, here's the page. I had already started. I didn't swatch everything out, but I just wanted to see what stuff looked like. So I've already like scribbled some stuff on here. But what we're going to color, because I'm not prepared. I did not come prepared. I don't have anything to draw, nothing that's original. You have like a sketch, like a reject sketch. It's not a reject sketch. I redid what I've already drawn before. It's not original, so don't come after me. Don't judge me for originality. But I thought it'd be quick and simple. The little tiger guy. We're gonna color it with the watercolor pens. We do it on white paper this time because people complained about the tan paper. Not really, but sort of. We're going to color it with the watercolor pens in the background, and then we're going to do little butterflies using the acrylic paint pens. So that's what my plan is. I'm a little bit hyped up on caffeine, like forgive me. Let me show you these acrylic paint pens real quick. So these are much like your other acrylic paint pens where you have to shake it to get the ink to come out. However, I think this nib is kind of cool. So just your regular acrylic paint pen nib, but watch, instead of like Posca where you have to repetitively shake it and then repetitively like chunk it, watch how this goes. Oh, look at that. It's so fast. The only thing that I've noticed with these acrylic paint pens is they are very watery. They say they're quick drying, water-based, non-toxic, I can't pronounce words, acrylic paint markers. Supposed to be able to use them on anything, just like your other regular acrylic paint markers. But I do feel like if you're not careful, if you're trying to paint anything but paper, you're probably gonna get a bit of a runny mess. These watercolor brush pens are a lot like other watercolor brush pens that I've used before. It's got this little hairy brush nib and it leaves, of course, like watercolor pigment behind. I've already done a little bit of like some swatches with water down here. This one's the watercolor paint pen. That's watercolor paint pen. That's watercolor paint pen. These are some of the swatches from the acrylic paint pens. So I think my plan is I am just going to utilize these like regular watercolor. I might even put them in a palette to make even less of a mess maybe, and see what we can do with these. I think I'm just gonna randomly just fill in this background with a bunch of green. I'm not gonna do anything terribly fancy. final thoughts. This is what I was able to come up with. Oh no, and I actually got some like paint smudge on pieces of this. So I actually do like the acrylic paint pens. Now keep in mind, like, these are cheap art products, so again, I don't expect a whole lot, but I do care about whether or not the product was fun to play with. And the watercolor pens, for the most part, they're watercolor pens. I guess they're kind of like a more mess-free alternative. Comes with a wide variety of colors, and they do act a bit like watercolor. Even when dry, if you paint on with the pens, let it dry, and then you come back and you can reactivate it with water really easy, and it turns into your more traditional watercolor. I do prefer a little bit of opaqueness to my watercolors. I like to form like a sort of like cell shading, and generally I like to use the tan paper. So these are more translucent-y. They probably wouldn't do much for me on the tan paper, but overall I think it's a fine product. It's very similar to other watercolor pens that I have used on the market, like the King Art Supply brand. It's very similar. I did have an issue with some of the pens where I was trying to pull the cap off, and like the entire marker literally fell apart, so I'd have to put things back together. So that happened a couple of times, so I did manage to get them back together again. But the acrylic paint markers, I actually like these. They say quick drying. They're not as quick to dry as, say, your Posca pens are, but what I do like about these is I kind of like the way that they lay flat, more like a wash or acrylic wash rather than like your Posca pen. I found using colored pencil on top of these to be a lot easier than trying to draw with colored pencil on top of a Posca pen. For whatever reason, these ones are like a lot thicker. They're not really shiny, but it's like there's a surface your colored pencil would have to crawl over to get on top, and these ones laid much more with the actual paper, blended in with the paper. So I actually kind of liked that, and because these are so watery, they're a lot easier to blend together if you're trying to get like some sort of a gradient. Whereas the Posca pen, I don't usually see people try to make gradients with those. Not that I use them very often either, but they just seem like they dry so quickly that they don't really blend. I think everybody that I know who uses Posca pens primarily uses it for like cell shading purposes. I also don't think that these rip up the paper as much as a Posca pen does. It doesn't matter what surface I've used it on. I played with these a little bit on the Strathmore journal, but I've used these on other papers, and they always seem like they kind of rip up a layer of paper with them, and you have to be very careful with these. These ones didn't really do that. Again, they just kind of glided on like paint, and I actually kind of really liked that. I mean, I didn't use every single one of these in this illustration because there's not that much to it. This was pretty simple, but the little butterflies were all the acrylic paint pen, and I enjoyed using them. Overall, I appreciate Grabie for sending these to me. I did have fun. I did actually manage to illustrate something that I actually kind of liked, and I was surprised by, because I'm always afraid that I'm going to ruin an illustration by practicing with art supplies I've never used before. So I do appreciate them sending this to me. I'm glad that I have them, and that may not help anybody whether or not you should purchase these or not. Well, maybe if you have, I really don't know what the purpose of watercolor pens are other than maybe just like mess free again. But if you have like kids or something, I probably wouldn't. I mean, maybe you could use those in a coloring book because they've kind of got like that fine tip to them. So if you had like thick paper, you could really get into those individual crevices until you have to use a paintbrush to then spread the paint around. I don't know. But the acrylic paint markers, again, I would get these. I kind of liked these in comparison to some of the other acrylic paint markers that I've gotten. So if you have somebody maybe a kid or something, or somebody who wants to try acrylic markers, but they don't want to splurge on the expensive ones because Poscas can get quite pricey, I do kind of think that those are worth it. That's a good range of colors, 28. It even has a gold in there. So take that as you will. I'm no expert. I am just a hobbyist. But one more time, I'll say thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Grabie, for sending those to me. And you guys, I'll see y'all the next time. Bye-bye.